Hey friends, it's another episode of the Day One Podcast. I'm Brett Nord.
I'm Adam Daly. We're excited to be back with you again for more information.
About Day One.
About Day One, yeah.
Let's do it. Roadmap?
If you're wondering about the theme of this podcast, it's about the app Day One. Yes. Let's just dive right into it. Let's talk about what's coming up and what you can expect from us here at the Day One team.
And another great discussion with the user.
Absolutely. You want to introduce her?
Yeah, Reid Matthews is with us. Reid?
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing more about your use of Day One, which I think is awesome, and can't wait to share with everyone else.
Amen. But let's give Reid and others a heads up on what's coming.
Yes.
Now, we just released 4.1.1 for iOS. This was a smaller release with some bug fixes and performance things, and so there wasn't a lot of information on the release notes. And I wanted to address this because we did have a comment about it on the Facebook community page where, they had wondered if we were moving away from our more detailed descriptions of the release notes. And I don't think so at all. I just think this was a smaller release that all the details weren't as important. But the team will still, plan on describing what's going on in the release notes as those releases are a little bit bigger. So thanks for your feedback. We appreciate that. It's always good to know. Yeah, Mark sent that in. So, a couple updates. Just that's performance issues. Some things that are coming down the pipeline will be very soon here. We saw a demonstration recently of being able to shoot video while in Day One. So you don't have to record a video outside of Day One and then import it. You'll be able to open up the camera app or the camera function in Day One and go ahead and record a video right in there. So it'll already be set up with the limitation that it has of 3 minutes at 1080p. So all of those settings are already set for you.
Remind me, does it automatically go to the camera roll? I can't remember. Or your Photos app, or do you need to
it depends on what you've used last. So if you were in the library, you'll be in the library. You'll have to toggle over to camera or vice versa. So be aware there is a toggle at the bottom of the photo/camera function in Day One. So that and another big thing that's coming down, I think we may have mentioned this a little bit last time, was audio. You'll be able to import other audio formats besides M4A, which is all we've supported so far. Now you'll be able to import MP3s and WAV files. It's not currently working on Mac. I have reported that to the team for investigation, so heads up there. Those things are coming. The other thing, we talked about this last time with Paul and kind of some of the roadblocks we've run up against with this, but templates are still being worked on. We're very excited about that. I can't wait till they sync between devices. You'll be able to call them up at any point during the entry creation. So even after you've started an entry, you can still throw in a template or start with a template, or very cool stuff. And there's actually even curated ones from some of our friends that we've worked with, things that they've used for their own templates. And then you'll be able to customize your own as well. Very cool stuff being worked on right now. The other things that are a little further down the roadmap but are still coming, Android update, our web app after some sync improvements have been made, improvements to book printing and PDF exporting. So these things are coming. We're working on them. And
features for the new OS.
That's right. Oh, iOS 13. I'm so excited. You've been on the beta for a little while.
Yep, just the public, but yes.
Okay, but we've succumbed. We didn't last very long. I was trying to tell myself I was going to wait for the GM, the public release. I couldn't wait. I had to get on it. Yeah. So all the betas are on all my devices now. I gave in, and I experienced some bugs like you do, but for the most part, it's been working pretty well.
Me too.
Some of the things I'm really excited about, and I think Day One users will be too. One is the pencil kit function. Apple is now giving developers access to all of the different pencil features that they have, and so you'll be able to call that up instead of our own custom little sliders for the width and the opaqueness and stuff like that. The opacity, sorry. It's going to be replaced now with the pencil kit toolbox, which is really cool. If you've been in iOS 13 and you've been in the Notes app, you can see it in there. It's really nice. Some real cool customization you can do with that thing.
What do you think tied in with the rumors of the new iPhone having pencil support?
I personally don't see the need to use a pencil on a phone.
Sure.
You'd have to write pretty small. I don't know, unless you're just writing over large things that is scrollable. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you.
we'll see what happens.
We do know that Steve Jobs will be rolling in the grave.
Rolling in the grave.
That. Like,
he was so adamant about your finger being the perfect stylus. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He's like, you don't need a stylus.
Sure.
You've got one right here.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, he would be.
Reid, did you want to say something?
Nope. Just laughing about
Steve turning in his grave.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm more excited about the prospect of additional camera functionalities. Allegedly, there's going to be 3 cameras on there to improve like 3D mapping and stuff like that. It looks cool.
Yes.
I mean, it looks bulky as hell heck, but I'm still excited to get it. I want it. I really do.
I really think I use my phone in this order: to play music, camera, talk to people on the phone. I guess texting is in there.
Oh, yeah. I text way more than I talk.
Yeah,
Nobody calls anybody anymore.
They don't. No.
Just shoot me a text.
No. In fact, it makes me mad when people call me. Don't.
Yeah.
That's what texting's for.
What is this phone app here? I've had that hidden for years. But iPad OS is also going to be very cool. They're separating iOS 13 and iPad OS. Those will be new. And some cool things that I've already tried out are the better split window things. You can have 2 apps open in the same window, and then all of the spaces are preserved. And so I can have dual screen on all of my apps, and those are all preserved no matter what I switch to. So very cool stuff.
Amazing.
I like the floating keyboard on iPad. That's fun to use. The swiping is pretty accurate. I don't know if you've tried that yet, but it's pretty darn accurate. So some cool stuff that are coming that will, can positively impact your use of Day One and other apps. We're very excited about those things. And Day One, as far as our track record goes, I think we're pretty good at having a compatible version released on the same day or just before the iOS updates are out. So stay tuned for that. We talked about the language thing. I didn't mention that one either.
Oh, no.
Because I want to talk about this. In iOS 13, Apple is now allowing you to set the language settings on a per-app basis. So you can be using your phone in Russian, but Day One in English or whatever, right? Very cool way to expand the use and accessibility for that. So
That's awesome.
That's all I got, Brett.
That sounds
Isn't that good
great.
enough?
Yes, it is.
Let's hope so.
For sure. So I'm excited to introduce Reid Matthews. Reid is from North Carolina and has some great uses of Day One. The one that caught me in particular, which we'll talk in depth, is his use of workflow as it relates to his exercise journey and fitness. So we'll get to that. But first off, Reid, welcome and hello, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Good.
I think we joked a little bit earlier about how I should disclose that I haven't written a book. I'm not internet famous. I'm unlike many of your prior guests who have been really interesting and inspiring people.
Sure.
I'm just an average Joe user of Day One, but really, really happy to be here. So, like you said, I'm in North Carolina. Have 3 kids, like being outside, and have a real interest in technology. So, as Adam is going through the changes to iOS 13 and iPad OS, I'm really looking forward to those. I'm in a use environment where I can't go on to the betas, so I'm waiting very impatiently to have all the new goodies delivered in September.
Yeah, I have no patience. Little to no patience. You could ask anyone important in my life.
You don't. I have no patience for you. No.
Thanks, buddy.
Just kidding. Reid, that's awesome. And tell us, we're going to get into depth of the use of your fitness in a second, but tell me first about how you started with Day One. What was your introduction to the app?
Yeah, I'm started thinking about this, trying to get my mind around how to describe this, and I remembered that I was a big user of another prominent note-taking app. Used Evernote for a long time and wanted to get to the point where I really took paper out of my life and started to take notes much more diligently in Evernote. And what I found was the organization wasn't working for me. I either had to title a note in a particular way or sort in a particular way to keep things in the order that I wanted them, and started looking around.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't looking for a journaling app as much as a way to organize things kind of the way that I would take them in a paper notebook, in date order, have some searchability in it. Ran across Day One and started using it really as just a place to open up my phone very quickly, take a few notes as I was having a conversation with someone, be sure to put names and relevant information in there. But it gave me a lot of great information around location, exactly when things happened. And I think you guys have hit on this point with several of your guests about just the simplicity of the app and the focus and how clean the design is, and how it really makes it easy to get your thoughts in and then back out. So that's how I got started with it. And then by jumping into the community, actually reading some of the blog posts on your website, I thought, well, this journaling thing sounds like it's a pretty healthy activity. So I started to get more into that. And, I would say I'm probably 80-20 on the journaling side now using the app versus I still take notes in the app when I have the occasion to, but I use it much more for getting down what I would consider to be very personal thoughts and things that I don't intend to share with anyone else.
Sure. That's awesome. That reminded me, in the Day One community right now, there's a great discussion going on. Joshua Howard asks, why do you guys find a need to journal in your lives? And that's a great question. And it sounds like you entered it, again, from your idea of something, a derivative of Evernote use, and then turned it more of a personal diary.
Yeah.
As you went along.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that I can actually go back to the On This Day feature, because it takes a while to build up that history to where the On This Day really has you sit back for a second and think, oh wow, that's been a year, that's been 2 years. I actually went back. I found, I guess, what you'd call my first journal from a trip that I took overseas in 1992. And it was handwritten. I was a much younger, much less eloquent person at the time. And so, but I actually went back and retyped all those in and used the date and location function to set those in the time that they were taken. Cool. And so every now, during the months of July and August, I have On This Date 27 years ago popping up, and it was just it's a nice way to compare my mindset 27 years ago versus a year ago or 2 years ago from more traditional entries.
That's one of my favorite features, just because of that. And if I had to answer that question, it's honestly a posterity thing for me. Like, I want to be able to pass on who I was and kind of my own introspection to my kids or whomever, so that they can have that. Because I remember reading older journals from my grandparents or great uncles or whatever, and like really finding just like personal inspiration out of those things. Like maybe they went through some sort of hardship and I can learn from it, or I'm going through something similar and I can see how what they did or how I can improve upon that or whatever it is. That's been my motivating factor. Is I want to make sure I fill this up with content so that somebody can get to know me, because I'm telling my own story.
Yeah, exactly.
There was some great responses to that question. And to your point, Adam, Lynn Worthington, her answer was that journaling is also a gift to your grandchildren, especially when you won't be around when they're bigger. To which Elin replied, I think not giving them my journal is a gift.
And that could be.
Even though she said it's a great idea, but for me, I don't know if that would be.
That could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
For sure.
I don't discount that at all.
And then we had some interesting, I'll just say a couple more and then we'll move on. But I loved Aram and Siva both mentioned that with Day One, sometimes it is painful when things come up of past girlfriends or past relationships that you kind of relive them. And in a way, try to frame that to, experience or to learn from it, or to say I've moved on, or to help move on from those hard times.
Yep.
So good stuff. Thank you for that. Reid, let's go back to now with your first use. Do you remember your first entry?
Yeah, I found it. It was March 2nd of 2017. It was the most pedestrian and business-oriented collection of bullet bullets about a meeting that I had with someone over coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish I'd had something pithy like, well, let's see how this journaling thing goes or something like that. But it was just a bunch of bullets that I probably never needed to capture. That's where they are.
That's okay.
We all got to start somewhere.
That's right. I am surprised how many are more pedestrian.
No, mine was literally like that. I'm not like this, but mine was like the other example he used was it was before I interviewed for a job here. I said, I've been talking to somebody about interviewing for a job here. I'm going to try out their app. That's literally what mine says. So.
Yeah, I think most that we've talked to have said, like, I'm just checking this out. I just downloaded it.
Yep.
Very few are saying, like, it blew me away from day one. But maybe second or third entry they are.
For sure.
We're always not sure of everything.
Ease into it.
It's a good place
Trust
to be.
but verify, right? Trust but verify.
That's right. Well, I want to remind the listeners that Reid said he's just an average guy, because when we get to talk about his workflow with health and fitness, it does not sound average to me.
No, it's quite advanced, and I think it's awesome. So I'm excited to get to this part.
Let's hear it, Reid.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to have to caveat everything just to show you how I stumbled onto everything. But
sure.
So, one of the things that, Adam talked about templates, and I'm really excited for that, because what I've found with this fitness routine is that when I have something I know I need to respond to in day one every day, that it motivates me to get in and get even more active. So I'm not just responding to this fitness entry that I'll describe in a second, but it gets me in, and it gets me, it gets the app open, it gets my mind thinking about what I'd want to put in. But
yeah.
So the fitness entry itself is a derivative of a series shortcut that I opened up about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, to move the weight from my scale that I take every morning into day one. And I thought, oh, okay. When I'm doing that, I can just put in what our workout was at the gym and maybe put in a few thoughts about how it went. And it just occurred to me, Brett, that I have you to thank for this, because I think we traded a few emails about this, and I was telling you some of the information that I was capturing, and you said, wow, would be nice if you could automate that. And I said, okay, well, challenge accepted. So let's go dig into this shortcut and see if I can figure this out. Now, I want to be really clear that I'm not a coder. I don't have a long list of apps to my credit or anything, but I do think the shortcut interface in iOS 12 is, while it's not plain English, it is something that you can figure out.
Yeah.
If you've ever, I think a lot of us kind of grew up having to take basic programming course, so you at least understand if-then statements and things like that. But once you dig into a shortcut that someone else who actually knows what they're doing has designed and put out there for you, it's not, I didn't think, very difficult to just replicate what they've done to pull in different sources. So going back to that original pull in the weight off of my creepily internet-connected scale, it pulls in. So I start the shortcut, and it pulls in the weight and body fat off of the scale. It pulls in the total calorie count from MyFitnessPal from a food logging perspective from the prior day. And then it skips a few lines and puts in the number of hours that I slept the night before based on what's in the health app, which is, I think, a pretty easy connection in the shortcuts library. And then it'll also pull in how many active calories I have from my watch at that point in the day. And it should be early enough, because I go to the gym very first thing in the morning, sometimes even before I'm awake. I go in, got a group of people that I work out with every day. Our workouts are pretty varied. And that is the last thing that gets automatically pulled into the shortcut, is the RSS feed from the website of what the workout is. And so in this entry, when I pull it up, so I run the shortcut, and it says, it takes me into day one, and it's got all this information populated. And then the motivation for me is to say, okay, wow, looks like you ate a lot there. I mean, like it was your job. Like, what was going on with you yesterday? Why did you eat that much? Or some days I may have undershot and gotten really busy or distracted, and so I can capture something that's not always fitness related, but just kind of a general sense of the day of how that changed my diet, and then I get to see in very real time how I'm doing weight wise, and I know pretty clearly where I need to be and what a reasonable swing around that number is. I say around that number, I mean north of that number. I never have a problem with being under my target number, but I do. I get a chance to look at that and say, okay, so you're eating for 2 on Wednesdays, and that's what it did to your weight, or it's Friday and you still haven't managed to recover from Wednesday's binge. So just a few thoughts around that, and then if I didn't get a lot of sleep the night before, I can throw in a few comments around, I was up late because of, or
sure.
If I got the right amount of sleep, then I could say, wow, hey, congratulations. That's, you're actually mostly an adult today. You were responsible and went to bed on time. And, and then I capture a few thoughts around the workout itself. And, it's an interesting group of people that I work out with. We do push each other, and, so it's interesting to see, like, there are times that I'll throw in comments about how I performed versus one of my friends, because some of these guys are just, none of us are in any danger of getting drafted by the NFL or anything, but some of these guys are really good at certain things, and so it's always interesting to say, hey, you know what, I was within a certain range of so and so and felt pretty good, or whatever. So there was a little bit of a learning curve, I think, in getting in to make all the connections, but it all happened within the Shortcuts app. And now I actually have a task in, I use things, but I think you could use it for anything, just a daily recurrence that says, hit your fitness journal shortcut, and I hit it, and it gives me that motivation to get a few thoughts down. Usually it doesn't take me more than 4 or 5 minutes to capture all those things.
Nice. I have a couple of questions. Well, one, I realize now that I have a lot more information to capture about myself. Sometimes I feel like I've got a lot of growing up to do. But my other question is that wasn't a question. Okay. That wasn't. This is the question. Okay. Here's the question. Do you find, Reid, that having all the information, all the data in one place like day one motivates you? I mean, because you're tracking all of this information separately, right? We've got a few different apps that are involved here, but do you find having it all in one repository, one journal or whatever, aids you in pushing past those limits or improving your PRs, whatever that is?
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I hadn't really made that connection until you said that, because it would require a lot of conscious thought for me to go into my Fitness Pal, to go into the health app, to go in here and go in there and pull all this stuff together. And I haven't changed the parameters that I'm pulling in. Maybe I ought to think about that and see if there's anything new. But this is the only place that I've found that I look at it holistically, from sleep to food to exercise to, in many cases, what happened the day before that caused me to do one thing or another. So I hadn't thought about it that way, but it is, especially now that I'm a year into it. And last year's entry was much more simplified because, as I mentioned, Brett actually motivated me to automate more of the information in it. This time last year, I look at it and I say, okay, from a weight perspective, here's where you are. And from, maybe a self-awareness perspective of how you feel after a workout, you're capturing things maybe a little more honestly than you did this time last year. So it is a really interesting environment to put all that stuff in. And so,
I like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I'm sure because of the way you're entering the info, you don't want to miss a day, or you don't want to not enter a food, a meal, because it's going to affect your results?
Well, I'm gonna give a much greater endorsement to day one than I do to my use of MyFitnessPal. Sometimes just the shame of what I would have to enter into MyFitnessPal makes me want to leave my phone alone for a little while. I'm much more consistent with day one than I am with. But for an app that doesn't ask anything more of you than to just basically remember what you ate, it is. They make it as easy as it can be.
Sure. I have one more question, then one comment. So the question is, when you do your little editorial for each day after you've looked at your stats, do you use tags so you could reference back, good times or bad times or depression or emotional responses?
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
The only tags that I use, I know this is one of the boxers versus briefs kind of questions you always ask on here, but from tags and journals, I started off. I'm going to wander off on my own, so if you guys need to pull me back, just let me know. But I started off with a separate journal for fitness, and a separate journal where I kept notes about what I was reading, because it occurred to me that I would think back to books that I professed to really enjoy and not be able to remember some of the characters' names. I thought that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. So I've started every 3 days making an entry into day one from a reading perspective, just to say, here's what I've covered over the last 3 days. Here are my reactions to it. Sometimes my amateur critic comes out, but most of the time it's just trying to capture the story. And what is very interesting about that is, I've read several longer books over the last year or so, and my expectations over where the story was going 200 pages in is so wrong. I mean, just could not be more wrong. And to be able to see those roll through on this day is kind of interesting to see. But going back to the journals versus tags thing, I started off with everything in separate journals, and have gotten to the point now where I just use tags as a substitute for journals. So each one of my daily fitness items gets tagged with nutrition and fitness as tags. And so if I needed to pull those up, I could do that. I tag all the reading journals that way, and then I tag anything associated with travel, just with a travel tag. And but other than that, the only other journals that I have are the ones from my Instagram imports, which absolutely love that. I appreciate all the work that must have gone into making that happen.
That was a good one. That's I know it's a pretty popular one with a lot of our users being able to grab those. Well, because the other integrations we did have previously in the activity feed or on IF didn't pull in historical data. And this now pulls all of that stuff in there, which is helpful for me because I don't use it as much as I used to, but now I can still have those things in one place.
Right.
So that's why I like it.
Great stuff. Thank you, Reid, for that. The last comment I was going to make on your working out with your buddies, a tip, is to get buddies that are 20 years older than you are. And then you can...
So I look way better?
Yeah, so you can keep up with them. I didn't say 10 years because sometimes 10...
That's like
years isn't enough.
No, that's true. That's like when you're out, getting chased by a bear. You just have to be not the slowest one.
Right. Exactly. Right. That's it. Well, that is a great workflow. I'm sure we're going to have people with questions on that. So if you don't mind jumping in the Facebook community and answer questions that people have.
Well, and also, would you mind sharing your shortcut?
Not a bit.
All right. So we'll paste a link to that below where you can click or tap on that link, and it should open the Shortcuts app, and you can add it to your own gallery. Now, with that being said, it sounds like there is some customization that Reid has done, so that may be something you want to go into and evaluate as well. But that's always, I think those are helpful to share because that's exactly how I did some of my shortcuts, was just tweak some that other people have created. So if you're not super familiar with how to build your own shortcuts from scratch, try this out where you open up an existing one and kind of just manipulate the data a little bit to be tailored to your needs.
Exactly.
A couple quick questions for you as we end up
lightning
the
round
discussion. That's right. First off is your favorite feature.
Well, I've talked a lot about On This Day. I do love it. The activity feed, especially now as I feel like it's been exposed more historically, so that if I go back and I say, here's the date and time, let me change the location, it'll bring me to where I was even several months ago. So I do love that, because the location aspect for a lot of these are very important to me. Maybe if they were really important, I would tag them at the time, but being able to use that historically is wonderful. And this may be accused of sucking up to the host here, but I really like the podcast, and I've learned so much from your guest and really from your engineers. And I'd mentioned this in an email to Brett about how interesting it is to see how the people who build the app use it differently. And the other thing that I think is just really cool is that everybody just seems like a real person. You know, they've got real things that they're dealing with. And so to see how different people use the app and to hear, new ways to think about capturing information. I know that's not a feature of the app, but it's been a really, really great motivator for me. In fact, I think on this day, just in the last couple of weeks, I had an entry that said, well, I'm going to start listening to the Day One podcast now. So
nice.
There you go. It all comes together.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot to us, because I think that's the entire purpose of what we wanted this show to be. When we first started brainstorming ideas about it, we wanted to make sure that our users had access to the engineers. We wanted to be able to, showcase their talents, have them talk about the actual development, because I think that gives it a side of, of the industry that we don't always see.
Right.
And, then they can talk about kind of the purposes behind the features. They can talk about complications that arise. I mean, it's just like any job where you're trying to problem solve and make things work. And the only difference is these guys are using a lot of letters and numbers.
And they're good sports, because I don't think their preference would be to be in front of a microphone.
Oh, for sure. No, so. Yeah, we do give them a hard time about that. But,
they're awesome.
But yeah, thank you for saying that. That means a lot to us. That's exactly what we want the show to be. Yes. We want it to be a place where users can get informed about upcoming features. We want it to be a place where users can hear different ways to use the app, or get cool shortcut ideas like this, or whatever the case may be. That's exactly what we want the show to do.
And thanks for everyone's support, not only listening, but those of you that are subscribers. That helps us a lot. So thank you for your contribution.
Amen.
Reid, any last thoughts or tips to share?
No, really just one other angle of listening to you guys over the last year has been your comment that, there's no right way to do this. The app is flexible enough that you have to use it the way that makes sense to you. And you talk about people that journal once a week, other people who have a running commentary of their lives. It's just, I think the way you guys have put this out there as a tool for people to use the way that's important to them has, it's been a really, liberating experience to go in and say, and I know you guys have talked a lot about security with your engineers, and just the ability to sit in there and say, okay, this is really what's on my mind, and I don't have to worry about this being shared anywhere else other than just where I want to capture it. Has been a really cool experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you. That reminded me one last comment on that question about why, guys, why do you find a need to journal in your lives? And someone said they really didn't trust any system before day one. So that's awesome that, to your point of the security, they wanted to have the journal for their eyes only and didn't feel comfortable with any other electronic option till now. So thank you.
It's very important to us. Absolutely. Protecting data is very important. And we talk about it every week, all the time. Like what can we do to make sure, to prevent X scenario or whatever.
Sure.
That's stuff that's on the team's mind. So
that's right.
All right.
Thank you, Reid. Appreciate your time and your comments.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
And check out the
enjoyed
link.
it. Thanks, guys.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Check out the links below for help guides or connecting with Brett or the shortcut from Reid. So tune in next time in a couple of weeks where we'll have more stuff.
That's right. Take care.